Hey guys, let's talk about hormone health, menopause. I have a new recipe for you. Hey, so my name is Skye. If you don't know me, I am a raw vegan. I found raw foods and it saved me from 32 years of chronic illness, 25 years in a bed. I've had 7 major organs removed, 60 surgeries. A lot of people say, how is she still alive? I sometimes I don't know, but I'm very blessed to have raw foods in my life because they have completely changed my life. There's obviously a whole picture around how I'm healthy. I've also had a full hysterectomy and went through menopause quite early. And I went through menopause. When you have a hysterectomy, you go through it quite intensely. So there's no like spreading it out over years. So when I talk symptoms, I'm talking, I could feel the symptoms like really intensely. When you have a hysterectomy, one day you're ovulating and menstruating, and the next day, no hormones. So I have a few people have requested that I talk about this. A lot of times it comes up hormonal questions. I think the biggest question was about eating habits since going through menopause. A lot of women find they can't control their eating as well and weight gain. But before I get into that, I thought I would go through some of the common symptoms and my experience in this realm to see if it can help you guys in any way. Whether you're menstruating or perimenopause or full menopause, we all go through it as women. And the more we talk about it and share, the more we come together as a community, and we cannot feel so alone during this. It's bound to happen. So I'm here to talk about it. Okay, so what essentially happens is when you go through menopause, estrogen and progesterone stop being made by the ovaries. So your whole body uses these hormones, not just in a hormonal sense, not just for sex drive and pregnancy, but the whole body uses it. It's something like even estrogen is very neuroprotective in the brain. But some of the symptoms that you may find are hot flashes, where you get really, really hot. These for me, because I went through it like instantly, literally, I could not leave the house without a fan. It was literally dripping wet off me all day, every day. There was like, and I remember swelling a lot with this as well, but the sweat was unbelievable. I've actually seen a video of a woman who was in somewhere very cold, and they were filming her, and there was actual steam coming off her head when she was having this hot flush in the cold climate. So it can be quite intense. And, you know, like if you told me when I was younger, oh, you get hot flashes, flashes, I would be like, oh, what? No big deal. But even with all I was going through, feeling that was so intense. Hey, everyone. I remember it being like really intense. What I can say is the only thing I could do is obviously have a fan with me everywhere I went, just a little handheld fan. That really helped me. Okay, so this is to do with the thalamic regulation in the body. A lot of this has to do with the brain. So just keep that in mind, especially when I tell you some of the major symptoms that I had. So there's vaginal dryness and discomfort. This is from reduced estrogen and the thinning and drying of the vaginal tissue. I should also say here, I am definitely not a doctor. I gave you my expertise at the start. If you are having a lot of symptoms, do see a doctor. I'm just sharing my experience and some of the information that's out there. Honestly, I wasn't sexually active when I went through all of this, so it wasn't like a huge thing for me. So I can't really speak much on this. I do know women who find a lot of relief from suppositories of estrogen or even hormone replacement. I am talking about hormone replacement here, but I will say one thing about the raw food diet is if you can keep your diet very, very hydrating, and high in omega-3s, you will also find a lot of benefits when it comes to going through not just vaginal dryness, but going through menopause. Decreased libido. So lowering hormones is going to decrease your sex drive. I want to talk about all of these in a whole in a minute because I don't have experience with all of these. Just because when I went through this, I was extremely sick. So libido wasn't a priority or probably even working very well for me. So there's some of the main effects that you have, and sorry, mood change as well. So they say mood swings, irritability, and depression. But I'm going to go into brain health further because the biggest and strongest thing that determines someone's identity is their brain and their consciousness. And I feel like that for me was huge. The changes hormonally which occurred, mentally, how we interact, just what makes me were mostly brain. They were not hot flushes. Yes, I went through that intensely. Sleep disturbances, kind of, but for me it was brain, like massively. And I actually wonder if that's how I ended up with such severe psychiatric issues. I'm diverging. I'll finish this and then I'll get to that. So also long-term effects are bone loss, density, and estrogen can help maintain this. Increased cardiovascular risk, once again, estrogen being protective can help this. And urinary changes, there's a increased chance of getting incontinence. When it comes to generally like feeling better, and if you have great health, I am sure that not all of these areas will affect you as much. But once again, I find, and I hear a lot of women say in the community, the higher hydration level from their food, the better they feel. I also notice that having healthy fats really helps. It just buffers and doesn't make you feel so inflamed. I keep talking about inflamed. I believe, and this feeds back into why I believe I had psychiatric issues, and this can't be proved, but there's a lot of books out there, including someone like Dr. Morse, who talks on how the ovaries and the uterus, well, especially the uterine lining that comes away each month, is detox. Okay, so you're detoxing. So a lot of women can say it's very heavy, this is horrible. Trust me, you want it out, not in. I do wonder, with as sick as I was and all the medications I was on, if you take out somebody's detoxifying organs, like for me, I had a full hysterectomy, the ovary is gone, so there's no hormones, but the uterus is gone as well, so there's no lining that's coming away. If the buildup then in the body gets extremely worse, and one of the places that's going to get backed up is the brain. You know, you can't hydrate the brain as much as you can other organs, and that's why a huge part of detoxification in the brain occurs at night. They discovered only recently that the brain has its own detoxifying system, which happens when you sleep. So also when I would get in these massive psychiatric problems, which didn't occur till I was 37, previously none, diagnosed with ADHD, but so was everyone else. So many people, I mean. So at 37, I completely split with reality. I do believe trauma is involved, but also my brain, in my opinion, I wasn't sleeping properly. At this time, I would not sleep for months. This then went on for, I had 9 psychiatric hospital stays. I think I was scheduled 5 times. One stay was like 10 months, back-to-back, one-on-one care. Then I had like these FND symptoms. Now, I am not saying if you've had a hysterectomy, you're going to go through this, but can you imagine someone like me having an extra detoxifying organ? Now, I am just putting that out there. I'm not going to even say that there's proof that that is how it works. I know probably a lot of doctors are going to say that's not what the purpose of that organ is. It is to be, you know, the egg to be fertilized. But I mean, come on, a lot of when I read how the body detoxifies itself, it just makes common sense. You know, the body is assimilating or it's detoxifying constantly. It either wants the nutrients and then there's rubbish. It wants nutrients and then there's rubbish. If you take out organs, I think there's going to be big problem. Plus my stomach's missing, and that's supposed to be the second brain. But I just find it interesting that there was like no, of course there was anxiety and depression, but even if you ask my mom, is a lot of the time I was sick, really sick, had no life. I was happy. I was always happy. And so she always found that strange. But then to have, and I think you have to remember when you have like breaks with reality and psychotic breaks and what else do they call it? Bipolar tendencies for periods of time. It's not the same as sliding into depression, which I did have bouts of. So I've said I'm always happy, but I did have bouts of only after the hysterectomy. And that's why I want to talk a little bit about brain health more in a minute. So just let me remove this for a second. Okay, so the next thing that I was going to talk about is just the management of, if you are relatively healthy and going through menopause, you feel you don't want to have hormone replacement or even enter that area, you're going to do better if most of your life you haven't been chronically ill and you've looked after yourself. So you've had a balanced diet, and I'm not saying that has to be raw, but like a cleaner diet, regular exercise, you never smoked, you rarely drunk, you had low stress, because all these things affect everything in the body, including hormones. So you'll find your body isn't as worn out and going to like cop it when you start losing parts of it, essentially. So I think that's really important. It's probably not spoken about enough because I do say the raw foods like healed me. The raw foods allow me to get up and exercise, be less stressed and sleep well, and be connected to spirit and source. Without them, I don't have that. I can't do those things. So I think that's really important to know, that I don't live to just eat. I eat, and then it helps me do the things I want to do in life, which, yeah, I'm very, very, very grateful for. But I will keep saying this often, that the foundation of any health is going to be that full circle of sleep, of exercise, of good nutrition and low stress. And then if you need more support, like I did with just hormones, every other area seems to be fine for me, but hormones, I decided to add them, is then you can make that decision. But without getting a foundation, I just think it's not just, it's really unfair to yourself, because you can get so much more out of yourself. So as well as lifestyle treatment, you can, as I've said, get HRT, which I don't technically take HRT. I take estrogen only. HRT is actually progesterone and estrogen together therapy. And you can have a bit of testosterone as well, but there's doctors out there that you go to and they measure all of that. And I do a women's health podcast, and I also talk a lot about women's health on this channel. And something that Marabella said was really important, and that is, hormones are so personal that if you start taking HRT, or even if you're using lifestyle to manage this, is when you feel really good, get your hormones tested and see where, especially something like estrogen and progesterone sit, and use that as like a marker. Because I'll tell you, when you hit that sweet spot, and that looks different for some people, there's higher levels, there's more inconsistency between progesterone and estrogen, and someone whose estrogen levels are higher, they may get agitated, less sleep, more pain, and another person can feel really good. So that's really important. That was something she said, because like her, sometimes I taper mine down a little or up a little. And I guess that's probably very normal. I thought I was the only one who did it, but she said she does it as well. No doctor's going to recommend that. They're like nice and stable. But just sometimes I can feel I need a little more, or I need to pull back a bit. And that's essentially, I just feel like we as women are very in tune with our bodies. I will say, just thinking here, that since the estrogen has come in, I have done a lot better with feedback from my body. Estrogen seems to make the cells more sensitive. I'm not exactly sure why right now, but it obviously turns on parts of the body, because even things like hunger, which it isn't listed here, but this is what a lot of women do say to me. I will talk about hunger and overeating when I talk about what I experience, but it wasn't listed as one of the main issues, and as weight gain, which happens to a lot of people. But back to that, that the feedback from my body is quite loud since I've been on hormone replacement, which I think has helped with my hunger cues. So that's why you don't want it too loud, but you want to find your sweet spot. So there's other treatments as well, which are, it's still more lifestyle modifications, but there are lubricants and things, if you, I think water-based ones, if that's the route you want to take. Okay. Now, what I wanted to talk about now was the brain, because what I had been through it when I had a hysterectomy. I'd already lost my stomach. I'd been in bed like mostly for at least 7 years at this point, and I was only 30. So I've been in bed most of my life, but there was bouts where I could get back up and do things like get to school or work for a few years. And by the time I had the hysterectomy, it was like 7 years. I'd had most of my surgeries were done before I was 30. So when I say 60 surgeries, most were done before I was 30. So 40 of them, taking out glands, taking out small tumors, scraping the area, muscles were removed, Botox injections, local anesthetic injections, pulling out the hip that was locked up. So I'd been through it, and I'd never suffered what you'd call depression or like, I don't want to be here, I can't feel anything. When I was starting to wake up in the mornings after I'd had the full hysterectomy, I was on no hormone replacement at the start. Within about a month, everything completely drops. The first thing I noticed is I'd open my eyes, and we take this for granted, and maybe women don't notice it when their hormones taper off slowly. The universe talks, okay? Like when I look at a white wall, I'm not just going, this is white with bricks. My brain's getting some level of feedback of what we call vibration. And when you eat a raw food diet, you would know what I'm talking about. Colors, you could say, become brighter, but it's like you get a feedback that you never knew was there. So I believe the way that we go into menstruation is estrogen must connect us somehow more so to vibrational energies. Now, this is totally my experience, and actually a good friend of mine who I'm going to interview, who lives near me, has had a hysterectomy too, and this is the exact same experience she had until she had the hormone replacement put back on. Same situation. So when I would like open my eyes or look at a wall, it would just be white, flat, dead. Now, a medical interpretation for that would be, oh, you're going through depression. Before you get the like, everything looks dead around me, I feel horrible situation. It's like wasn't conscious until it was taken away that when I look at things, I don't just see, and I'm giving here an example of a zucchini, but it's actually giving me like a vibrational energy that it's really hard to explain, but it's more than the color. It's more than going, this is green, this is white. It's like, okay, here's a great example. It gives you a feeling. So sometimes I'll see a white wall when I was getting my white, and the reason I always bring up white wall is because the wall in my room I would wake up to was white, and I always woke up happy, and all of a sudden I looked in it and it was just like completely flat. Like I knew it was white, but it was like it used to talk or give me a feeling. This is it. It gives a feeling. So when I would look at this is, or the white wall example, because I have my house painted white, is when we say we don't like a shade of white, like it might have been going into yellow, I was never aware that I was getting a feeling off it, as in like, it doesn't feel right, or, I think that I don't like it strictly because I have stored in my brain the color white I like, or the color of a zucchini I like, or the color of a juice, or the color of an onion I like. But what I realized is that there was no feeling when I woke up in the mornings in the world. Like I would wake up, I used to be like, oh, look at the trees, that makes me feel good. Or look at there's the painting on my white wall, that makes me feel good. I couldn't feel any feedback. And remember, I've gone from having estrogen and progesterone and even high levels of testosterone to nothing. Like literally it tanks out very quickly. So we're not talking about like when you go into menstruation, maybe women have this, especially maybe when they're in their cyclic stages and menstruation stages, that there is reasons that we have maybe I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but levels of feeling feedback which are quite high from things around us. Now, the reason I know it's not just me is because my friend also, who's had this situation, because when I put the estrogen back on when I was younger and I'd had the hysterectomy and they gave me the hormone replacement, this went away. So I was getting feedback again, but then you forget about it. Now, when I stopped my hormone replacement, when I went raw, you get a lot of this feedback already from eating raw foods. When you don't eat raw food, when I didn't eat raw foods and I was in menopause, it was like the whole world was dead when I wasn't on hormone replacement. But you still get a lot of feedback when you're very hydrated. And I think you're basically like kind of like eating the universe. Anyway, when I put the hormone replacement back on at New Year's Eve, and I went out with this friend, is I left where I was. And the reason I put it back on is I could go into it longer, but there was, I was having like brain fog, my joints were aching, I felt I was aging really fast. But the first thing I noticed is I left where we were, and the universe was talking very loudly again to me. So I walked home, and it was like being in like Alice in Wonderland. I was like, the sky, it's like you feel things again. That's how it feels. And maybe you can call it depression, but it's not the same as feeling sad or, something like, because, I've had great losses in my life and gone through things, and there's emotions you ride and you can go numb. But this is like it switches off and on with estrogen. There you go. For me and for my friend, but both of us have had a hysterectomy, very similar experiences in our life. So I was like telling him, like, everything switched back. I was walking home, like, and the dog, and even I can connect to my family again more. And since having it put back in, and a lot of my memories, I think, are stored because I did use this medication, which is a separate thing. But I don't know if anyone's had similar experiences, but it's literally like turning for me. Before I get my joints don't feel as stiff. I'm much clearer. I'm not getting like cracking in the neck. What else? My mental health and my mood are so much better with the estrogen. Before all that, there's something like magic. And to me, that feeds into why women cycle with the moon. Like, we feel that pull very strongly, especially when we're in our menstrual phase of life, with the moon, with ovulation. And women tend to sense things. And maybe that's where the estrogen feeds into a lot of that. I've gone off a bit there, but what I really do want to say is then my mood is better. I feel better. I feel like myself. And a lot of, I think, what happens for me when I wanted the hysterectomy because I was in so much pain, the one thing that I do notice is you have to go through a stage of processing. And many women who have perimenopause or menopause would know this, of processing your purpose. Because a lot of what we don't realize is we take, with higher levels of hormones, our mood's better, we feel good. It also helps drive that purpose in our brain and in motivation in our life as to why we're here. A lot of what is tied around our identity, and I'm not saying that this is how it should be, but what is tied around our identity is that we would meet a partner and have a baby. Like, from a young age, when one of the first things we start watching and are read are princess stories, and you're happily ever after. So basically, you have to also process this. Now, why I'm mentioning this and why this gets even more difficult is because estrogen has this neuroprotective property on the brain. So it supports systems. It supports the systems of serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine. It promotes neuroplasticity, so it actually promotes neuron growth. And this all declines as estrogen declines. Now, it regulates mood, so that's why the mood and irritability. I just don't think that it's spoken enough about when it comes to menopause, about brain, because you are your brain. So here it's memory and cognition. So you're going to have lapses in concentration, lapses in memory. Estrogen influences areas like the hippocampus, which is critical for memory formation. My memory is just so much better. I can pull memories so much better with estrogen. This is only my experience. Sleep, it affects sleep, both having a balanced level of estrogen and progesterone, but some people find progesterone is even better for sleep. Neuroprotective and brain aging. Lower estrogen levels may increase vulnerability to neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's disease. Now, I don't think if you're eating a raw diet, you're going to get these diseases. I don't think it's going to affect you as much. And I do believe, so the role of estrogen doesn't, I have had a hysterectomy, right? Is your ovaries would still and can still release estrogen, but usually the role is passed over to the adrenal glands. It's more regulated, I think, by the pituitary, but it will be passed over. And with health, it can happen clearly. I'm just bringing forth some of my experiences with this. So neurotransmitter changes, they change the serotonin and dopamine and norepinephrine levels in the brain, which will affect emotions and mood. And as I said, the neuroplasticity, so the ability the brain has to form new connections. So I just want to keep stressing how out of all the systems that brain and identity is probably what is like the bigger, like I even got chills, the biggest thing, like, because you're trying to process not being like, you're basically like, when you're younger, you're taught you're going to grow up and then it stops. No one talks about what happens after. Now, a lot of people, this continues because they're still working, their kids haven't left home yet, or they're at an age where their kids are having babies, so they're going into grandmother mode, so they'll adapt that. But I swear every person, every woman will face who am I, and you're facing who am I with a lack of hormones that make you feel good, that help concentration, that help you sleep. So out of all the things I've been through, some of the most, if not the most traumatic and misunderstood in my world have been to do with this hormone, who am I now journey. So I just want to put it out there because there are ways through, there are purposes. I feel like maybe I'm even better at doing this now, even though, I mean, I got to a point of going through so much. I wanted to share this, but maybe I'm better at doing it because I'm not distracted by who you are when you are menstruating and looking for a partner and think you're going to have children. And, I feel like I'm really engulfed in my purpose. But some days I will say it's still really hard for me to face that I didn't have kids. But it's not so much about kids. It's that stage of my life is over. And I had the hysterectomy at 30. So it's just something I want to put out there, so that if you feel like you're going crazy or you've got depression and you never had it before and it's turned on now, and you're not able to concentrate and you're feeling even worthless because you feel like you're not menstruating, but also you can't use your brain, this could be a huge part. I'm not recommending hormones. I never have. For me, they've been amazing. Just estrogen has been amazing. But I do strongly recommend you find a way to have a healthy diet, good sleep, low stress, be out in nature. Nature really helps, because I think the big thing is no one now, just not even with my organ removed, but if this detox pathway is correct, you're going through not having all these hormones, which made you feel like who you are, but you've also got to process more toxins. If this is true, is you're not eliminating through the uterine lining each month. And it's like some people I work with can go on this journey, and at the start they really have heavy periods before they settle into it being lighter, and that's because the body's free to kind of get rid of things. That I don't know is fact, but it kind of makes sense if you've listened to this whole video. All right. I wanted to talk, before I get into making today's recipe, I wanted to just talk about the other thing, which is really apparent whenever I've come off hormones for me, is it's like I can't stop eating. It's like I'm trying to feel something. And I wonder if this falls into the lowering of the brain neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, where you're not getting as much pleasure from things, like even as I was talking about those feelings that I get from looking at the universe, or when I'm out or even around people and connect to people better. And maybe a lot of the feeling I try and get is from food. And the other thing it's like I need to feel full. And maybe, as I said, that's more of a brain thing. But the other thing I noticed since being on the hormone replacement is weight distribution. So when I'm not on hormone replacement therapy, and this has happened not just with raw foods, but a couple times in my life, inevitably it's like my body weight just goes, it's hard to explain, around the middle, kind of like up around here, around the face. It's like it just throws it over the whole body. Like it's just going to put it somewhere, kind of like that distribution of blood sugar issues, where you get it like around here, around here, around here. And you can get blood sugar issues. It's harder to regulate. Well, if the body is under stress, it's harder to regulate even the hormones with blood sugar. Another topic for another day. Weight. So what I noticed since taking the hormone replacement, and this took a while to affect me, because when I was eating, and a lot of women say they do a lot better on lighter foods in menopause. I I guess I did do better, but my body needed denser foods. And that's when I struggled even more so. And after I think 2 or 3 years of doing the raw foods is where there's just weight gain. I could barely eat and I would just keep gaining weight. And people may not have noticed, but it just made me feel sluggish, slow. I wasn't as efficient. I couldn't exercise as well. I felt generally more inflamed. And that's a personal journey. You don't have to be like massive to feel weight. I'm eating like just, plants, raw plants. But I will say there's this, I keep wanting to eat. And now, sorry, that slowed down, but also where the weight goes. So my weight now does not go around my stomach. It kind of goes more around my butt or my thighs, but it's kind of just stopped. So, and I'm not saying that will happen for everybody, but definitely I didn't know where this comes up, but it is true that estrogen and progesterone hormones determine where weight will be distributed on the body. And that's why women, when they go through hormonal changes, get that hourglass. Their whole body gets restructured, right? They go from being like up and down to having a curved body. So that obviously is not going to be as dramatic at 44 for me, but it definitely has helped enough that I will stay. There have been negative effects for the hormone replacement therapy. It is what I would call acidic in the body. I'm eating a very, and when I say acidic, you just get irritated more with things. You're more sensitive. You can get inflamed quicker. But I think the one thing I forgot going on this food journey is the body does adapt. I think when you've been chronically sick, you forget that the body adapts because it keeps breaking. It just breaks and breaks and breaks. But when you eat a really great diet and you've got, a great lifestyle and low stress, is if you add something in that you've decided you want to add in to benefit your body, and I wouldn't add in a huge amount of things, but if you want something to support you, I forgot the body adapts. So when you first put it in, it might be really strong. You feel really moody being hormones. You're like, do I want this? I feel, not as, what's the word, natural, I guess. But over time, the body learns the same time every day this is coming in and it compensates, especially a healthy body. So that is something to think about as well. It just says here with the brain as well, there's just fogginess. I'm jumping back to the brain. There's fogginess, slow thoughts, and that which we already spoke about. Okay, so that is the hormone talk for today. And now I want to say, and I say this all the time, I have for the last few days been doing, I feel like I do best on a raw diet when I eat predominantly the fresh food. Like the focus cannot be for me dried things or misos or tamari or cacao. I think I'm doing fine, but I never am. And recently I'm back on everything really fresh and natural. I was doing the flax oil again because I was getting problems, and now I've moved back on, and the only fat source at the moment I'm using, and it's not much, is some chia or flax. I'm not having a lot, but my body seems to be okay with that. But I'm doing again, I'm trying, and I know I'll still have it occasionally, but I'm really trying to I seem to be fine with salt. Now it took me a while to get it back in, but every time I have something, what Dr. Caressa even said is there's a difference between like a raw vegan. When you look at people who are doing constantly, all they do is dehydration, all they do is dried foods, all they do is superfoods, all they do is oils, all they do is he calls it industrialized, because it's all industrialized. And I knew this when I went raw. I was like, there's no difference, because you can have that cooked essentially. You can call it raw, but it's still not the same. And everyone sits at a different level. For me, and just talking to Dr. Caressa, he's amazing. He's probably the most knowledgeable. I've read a lot of raw vegan books. Knowledgeable person I know on raw foods. He's a sleep expert. He's got it all going on. And I asked him if he would do a course, and apparently he has one, I think in Spanish. I think that's his language. But if he gets enough followers, he's going to do one in English. I'm there. I was like blown away by everything he knew. I've lost my train of thought there. What was I talking about? My raw foods, because we're going to make this. So yeah, he reminded me that he eats, I think, go and watch it. He gets up coconut water, and then he has a massive amount of fruit, like 2 to 3 kilos of fruit in the middle of the day, handful of nuts, and then dinner is just veggies, like veggies and greens. And he's like, that's how he feels best. Sometimes when he needs it, he'll have some lentils or some quinoa to up his protein. But it's like, I suggest, I'm not dogmatic, it's you do what works for you, but I always say to people, come up as light as you can and then add things back and see how you feel. I think that's the best way to do it. To this day, I can do it much better. I can get all like, especially like when the bundle's on and I'm trying all different people's recipes day after day, like a couple times a day, is I will be okay. But eventually I have to come back to what's this. And this is where this recipe comes from today. So all I had left was a ton of zucchinis and a couple onions. And I'm going to make, I was going to do zucchini and onion tostadas, but I think I'm actually going to do chips. I'm getting low on time. I've got an interview straight after this. But what I might do is I do want to peel these. See how quickly I can peel these. Where's my, up there. Okay, let's bring this around so you guys can watch. All right. Now I've got a vegetable peeler. Now you don't need to peel these. It's just that like I've decided I'm going to. It's definitely up to you. Yeah, so you can, this is going to be just onions and zucchini. And I love onions in the dehydrator. They're beautiful. So I'm going to make them chunky in this recipe. I'm not actually going to blend it all through because I like that oniony. What have I done here? That onion texture. Okay, we're trying to measure here because I know you guys want the measurements. So there we go. One little measuring cup. Okay. So we'll do 1 cup. I've got a lot of zucchinis here. I could just go wild, but we'll see how we go. So yeah, I'm about to interview Lawrence Richardson. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And he's been eating watermelon for over 30 days. I think he lost 50 pounds eating a plant-based diet. But he's been doing the watermelon. I'm watching all of you guys over the other side of the world do your watermelon cleanses. By the time my summer comes, I'm like buying watermelons in winter because I've watched everyone online do watermelons. I get like FOMO, fruit FOMO. Okay, that's going to be another cup. I can just tell a little bit over a cup, but the other one wasn't a full cup. So that's 2 cups. So, and you guys in the comments, let me know if there's a topic you want me to talk on next week. I think the biggest thing is a lot of people that I notice struggle with weight after menopause. And the biggest thing I can say here is when I constantly do fruit, I was putting on weight. Oh, sorry. When I say doing fruit, eating like mangoes, and I was having like avocados, I was having lots of dates. When I have like more like raspberries and blueberries and more veggies, my weight seems to do better. Like literally, if I want to lose weight, I have to look at how many calories I'm eating. It happens very quickly on raw foods. This is only since I've got hormone replacement in, mind you. It was not happening before. But yes, I have to. It's quite simple, actually. If I want to put on weight, I eat more calories. If I want to lose weight, I eat less calories. Okay, what are we up to? We're up to about 3. We might do 4 just because I got so many zucchinis here. Well, maybe I will do tostadas. What does everyone think? Anyone say tostadas or chips? It doesn't really matter. I've got both the molds out. I might have enough to do both. I love tostadas. I love a bit of crunch. Okay. So it's like 4 cups or 4 zucchinis. It actually is probably more like 5 cups, if I'm honest. Oh, just over 4 cups probably. So let me show you this. So here, okay, Trina said chips. We'll do chips. Is that what you guys, yeah, you call crisps or chips. So we're up to here. We filled it. Let's say we fill the blender up halfway or just over halfway, is it? I don't know. 4.5 cups. I'm ending it there. 4.5 cups of zucchini. Now I want to blend that. So that's going to the blender. And we blend that. Okay, now I've got, ideally didn't want to use a red onion, but maybe they'll be pretty. They'll be green and red. So I think that piece might be too small. We'll do green and red. Indecisive today. Now what I want to do is just chop this. Oh, you can't see. We're going to just chop this. I'm going to do this roughly. Like, I'm just going to blitz these through so we get some texture in there. These will be pretty chips. Now you can add a teaspoon of onion powder if you want, but this is fine. Okay, I just wanted them blitzed through like that. Let me show you. Just like they're chunky. I wanted it chunky. All right. Now let's line up these chips. Actually, I might juice all that later, that rubbish. So we'll put this down here. And so that's just from Bright Kitchen. My Amazon link storefront is here. It should be there. Oh, hang on, that didn't work. There we go. If you want to grab it. Okay. Just pour a little bit into each of these. Okay, let's see how this is going. Oh, it smells good. That's for sure. So when I finish these, I actually might put a little bit of onion powder and salt on them. Like when I eat them, like you know how chips or crisps or whatever you call them are served with a bit of flavor on them? I might, once these are made, flavor them after. Don't worry too much if it gets on the edge. And people are going to say, can I make these without the chip mold? Well, if you do, you're going to have to just pour it out, put it in and let it dehydrate and then crack it afterwards. Like crack them up into chips afterwards. Ooh. See, I knew what I was doing. I made perfect amount. Might be one extra chip in there. Nope. Looks like I made it perfect. Actually, you know what? I just realized I was going to make this with chia seeds as well to bind it. You can, when you do this, if you want to, put a tablespoon of chia. See, I should have got the chia seeds out. You can put a tablespoon of chia seeds, but you can make them like this as well. These will be fine. I used to make pizza bases like this. I was wondering why they're not binding, and I'm like, okay, I usually put chia seeds in. So if you're making these, put chia, blend it all. This is what I do. I would blend the zucchini, and then I would put in the tablespoon of chia seeds, blitz it up, and then I would put in the onion. But this will be fine. I've gone really natural here. I might actually afterwards, I've got to do another live now, but I will, I've got 3 zucchinis left, so I will make the chia ones as well. But these will go in for at 115. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I was talking about chia and got distracted. So that's it. That's it for this week. I will see you all next week and message me if you have a topic that you want to talk on.